kind of, I mean, it was bad for him. It was really embarrassing. So watch a couple highlights. Jen Psaki's going to go over from here. But I just wanted to show that clip of Michael Steele because he was all excited.
Hi from New York. I'm Jen Psaki. Thank you for sticking with us for another hour of special coverage following the first and so far only presidential debate. We'll see if there's another one. I'm a little skeptical. Between, of course, Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump. Over the course of 90 minutes, one candidate, Kamala Harris, absolutely owned the other guy on the stage. She talked about issues that people actually care about, like the economy, abortion rights, and democracy itself. Well, the other guy, Donald Trump, seemed unprepared, quite grumpy, and often incoherent. At times, the vice president could do nothing but laugh or stare aghast at the ranting and raving from the other side of the stage. The kind of rambling free association that many Americans have not heard since Donald Trump left office nearly 4 years ago. What's more, the ex-president proved once again that he is the impulse control of a toddler. Over and over again, Harris laid rhetorical traps for the former president. And over again, Trump took the bait.
I'll tell you something. He's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people.
So, I wanted to get it. So she's right. So she did a couple things right out of the gate that were great. She laid out her economic policy in the first, few minutes. This is what my policy plan is. And then she stuck to it through the rest of this is what my plan is. I have a plan. When they finally needled Donald Trump to, well, what's your plan? He literally said this. I have a concept of a plan.
Oh, I remember that. He's like, well, I have a concept. There are plans that we could have.
Sure,
You're like,
is that concept called Project 2025? Oh, I don't know anything about that. So basically, you're going to do whatever they tell you. So Project 2025 is what you're saying. So she did that. She also, so she caught him right out of the gate with that. She caught him right out of the gate with, look, he's going to lie and say crazy stuff. And he did. So she just said, look, I told you he was going to lie. I don't know what else what do you want to hear. She kept saying that throughout the debate. The other thing was the immigration deal was she's like, he's going to talk a lot about immigration even when it's not the topic. Because that's all he talks about. Because that's the only thing he has is xenophobia. Brown people are coming for you. That's it. That's his all he's running on. And that's what he talked about. So the whole thing about them eating the dogs and cats and pets thing, apparently there was some story.
yeah, racist bullshit. That's what it is.
It's not even that. It's even stupider. There was something about Venezuelan gangs, and it turned out it wasn't Venezuelan gangs. It were all right-wing guys pretending to try and cause problems. And then there was, but that got spread through right-wing media. And then there was one where it was some immigrant ate some guy's pet. Was one of the things they were talking. And then that got to, well, the immigrants are coming over and stealing and eating people's pets. And it wasn't the story, because the police even had to mention that there have been no reports of people's pets being stolen and eaten. No reports. I mean, they had to pull cops off their duties to make sure there were no reports so they could make that statement to the press. I mean, it's such a waste. And what it was, I think it was something like, it was a guy who was a black guy who was homeless, who I guess killed and ate a duck. And he got in trouble for that. But it was a wild duck. It's like, and I mean.
So he wasn't jumping into someone's yard to take their cat to go and barbecue it or something crazy,
no,
right?
And he wasn't even an immigrant. It was just a black guy.
Wow. So talk about screwing that story up as much as you possibly could. It's not anybody's pets. It has nothing to do with immigration. It might be about a homeless person, so maybe it becomes a homelessness issue, but it has nothing to do with what he's talking about.
Right, and he killed and ate a duck. People do that all the time. Duck is pretty common. I've eaten duck. But yeah, so that was one, just crazy shit, but we'll watch some more of these little clips real quick, because it's just crazy to me. But I like how she just
People
laughs.
that live there.
What you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom.
Let me respond as to the rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies.
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that.
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in
No, I
2020?
don't acknowledge that at all.
And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as Vice President of the United States. And world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump.
Viktor Orban said it. He said the most respected, most feared person.
So I got to break some of this down just because it's. So that was one of the big needling things, because he's so sensitive about the crowd size and how many people like him or don't like him. So she needled him on that all night, and he just got. And it's like, his staff is like, please don't respond, just. But he can't help himself, right? So the crowd says, yeah, his crowds are leaving in the middle of his speeches. They were leaving like a half hour into his. We've covered it. We've showed footage of it.
Right.
On this show, they're leaving. It's boring. It's the same shtick, and he doesn't make any sense. And he got all upset about that. Had to defend it. No, nobody goes to her rallies. Well, that's not true. Her rallies have been pretty fucking packed. In fact, there are more people at her rallies than yours.
That's also not a sensitive spot for her. Like,
No, like she cares.
her level of. I mean, it's not true, but
Yeah.
even if it were true, it's not an ego point for her. For him, there's so much. He didn't have a good relationship with his father, and clearly has not worked that out in therapy.
Yeah.
But he can't handle the idea that he's not popular and not in charge and not loved and revered and whatever. Like, he's got to have this, certain image of himself. So that is a sensitive spot for him. Him throwing that back at her, she's like,
Yeah, she didn't
All
say
right.
anything. Because there's nothing to say. There's nothing worth saying. The other thing about you got fired by 81 million people. Yeah, he lost. 81 million people voted against you. 73 million people voted for you, which shows you something dark about this country. But 81 million, the majority, voted against you. And he couldn't even acknowledge that. No, I won. But then, of course, he admitted later he lost in the debate. Right? So it's like he's just all over the place. And then she talked about world leaders are laughing at him. It's true. That's been reported heavily, that world leaders think he's a joke. But what does he do? Oh, no. Viktor Orban. I'm sorry. You picked the one weird-ass dictator who likes you?
well, and
He's not even an ally.
Let's not forget throughout the debate, he started talking about how he was buddies with Putin.
Yeah.
Like this is a selling point.
Right.
He's like, how often do you talk to Putin?
Yeah. Putin's my best friend. He gave me a soccer ball once.
Like, all over the debate, multiple times being like, well, how often do you talk to Putin? Well, listen, when I talk to him, he listens to me because we're besties, we're like this, So you think the American people are super excited about you, hanging out with and talking to him?
Well, the smart thing she did about that was she talked about this because Putin is not just interested in Ukraine. He wants Europe. All of Europe. I mean, that's always been the Russian oligarch dream, right? And he's got his nutbags with him to tell him, no, Ukraine is the first step. He'll take Poland next, which is their neighbor. Right? And of course, she pointed that out. And if you know anybody who's Polish or from Poland, the Polish people are worried about that. Because if he takes Ukraine, then Russia is right on there next door.
Yeah.
And they are not buddies with the Russians. So the Polish people are worried about that. Well, it's interesting because Pennsylvania is a state they're both tied in. It's a big swing state. And pretty much whoever wins Pennsylvania is pretty much got this thing locked up or close to. Well, Pennsylvania's got a couple 100,000 Polish immigrants or children of Polish immigrants living there that know people in Poland. how thrilled do you think they are about, well, yeah, that's a good point. If we elect Trump, our cousins in Poland might be getting invaded by Russia. So she kind of nailed him on
I gotta
that.
tell you, as somebody that legitimately has family that live in Europe, now this is not the country we're worried about, but I've got family in Norway and Sweden,
Yeah.
and if suddenly it was like, oh snap, we're letting them take over Finland,
Yeah.
uh-oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, my eyeballs get big, and then I go, oh, they're right there next to my family. I've got my cousins hanging out there, you know,
Well,
your ears perk, and
yeah.
we have plenty of America in that boat.
Yeah. Well, we're funneling a lot of weapons to them through Poland. So Poland's actually been a pretty good ally in this. But that just kind of deals. But I just wanted to cover those couple things because it was just so stupid. We'll watch the rest of this real quick and then wrap it up. But
is Donald Trump.
yeah.
So you saw a bunch of it there. We'll play more throughout the course of the next hour, but basically,
That was pretty much it. But yeah, I mean, that just gives you a sense of kind of what the debate was. She needled him. He got defensive and angry. He spent the whole night on the back foot trying to defend all the stupid things he's done.
And he took the damn bait every time. Every time he took the debate or took the bait.
Yeah.
I mean, we need a president who's smart enough to know when somebody's baiting him.
Right. Well, and furthermore, when it was her turn, what would she do? She'd tell you, this is what I'm going to do for you, the American people. And she made that clear at the beginning. He's never going to talk. He doesn't talk about the people. He doesn't talk about anybody. He's only going to talk about himself. I'm going to talk about you. And then what happened? She baited him. He talked about himself. And then she would bring it back to, well, let me talk about what I'm going to do for you. And then she bait him again. And then, I mean, it was... She basically dog walked him all fucking night. It was hilarious.
Right.
I mean, she kind of owned it. So, anyway, we'll see what that does to the polls. Debate doesn't necessarily dictate an election. You know, ask Hillary Clinton. But it does. That does make a difference because there are a lot of undecided voters who didn't know much about her. So she got a chance to step up and show herself a side-by-side comparison. Look at what you're buying.
Right.
Right.
Well, and I have to say, she looked very competent. So she showed up and she was very competent
and
stuck to her guns. So
yeah, and she wasn't defensive or hunched over or too afraid to look at her opponent. And she doesn't look old and decrepit and she's not babbling and slurring, which he did some of the night. So it's like, you know. But yeah, anyway, so she owned that. His stock was down like 13% today, the day after. So it just goes to show you how bad he did. So investors are not feeling it right now. So that was the debate in a nutshell kind of thing. But